Somewhere in the dark, a fire is burning. It is small, and it is the only light for a very long way. And around it, a few people are sleeping on the cold ground. You cannot see them yet. The way they have always been there, every night that ran before this one. Tonight we are going to go and sit beside that fire. We are going to go back further than almost anything you know how to imagine. Back to the very beginning of the human story. The soft bed beneath you. The walls that hold the cold outside. Quiet hum of a world built entirely by human hands. All of it is recent. All of it belongs to the last thin sliver of our time on this earth. Almost the whole length of the human story. There were no cities, no farms, no written words at all. There was only the land, and the herds, and the fire, and the small band of people gathered close around it. That is where we are going tonight. Not to a ruin or a record, to a living world, seen from the inside. You are going to become one of those sleepers by the fire. You will wake in the cold. You will walk behind the great herds. You will learn slowly what it took to stay alive in the oldest age there was. And the strange thing worth holding on to, is that the mind doing all of this is exactly the same as the mind you are using right now. So before we begin, settle yourself properly. Let the weight of the day go out of your shoulders. There is nowhere you need to be, and nothing you need to do but drift, and you do not have to stay awake for any of this. If sleep comes early and carries you off before the herds appear, that is exactly as it should be. Fire will still be burning whenever you return to it. It is patient. It has waited a very long time already. These long, quiet journeys are the kind of thing that helps you rest. Then following along is the simplest way to let more of them find you on other nights when the dark feels wide and sleep is slow to come. That is all. No need to do anything now. Just know the way back is always open. And while you are still half here, tell me, in a word or two, where you are listening from tonight and what the hour is in your part of the world. I always wonder how far out into the dark these stories travel. Now let the room around you grow faint. Let the bed beneath you become the ground, hard and cool. The air sharpens. It smells of cold grass and wood smoke and something wild and musky far off in the dark. Sky above you is enormous and scattered with more stars than you have ever seen. You are lying between sleeping bodies, wrapped in heavy hides. A low fire crackles an arm's length from your face. You are very young here, and the world is older than counting. Let us begin. You wake before the light, the way you always do, into cold so complete, it feels like a weight pressing on your face. For a moment you do not move. You lie in the dark between two sleeping bodies, your mother on one side, a younger child on the other, and you listen. Fire has burned down to a dull red glow. Someone fed it in the night, kept it alive, the way it must always be kept alive. You hear the slow breathing of the band around you, and beyond that, the wind moving across the open land. Endless and patient and old. Been a long winter. You have felt it in your body, in the looseness of your clothing where it used to be snug, in the way everyone moves a little slower now, a little more carefully. The stores are nearly gone. Dried meat that hung so thick in the early cold is down to its last dark strips. For weeks, the talk around the fire has circled the same hope, spoken quietly so as not to tempt bad luck, that the worst has passed, that the herds are stirring, that soon it will be time to move. And this morning, you can feel that it is true. Something in the air has changed. The cold is still fierce, but it is no longer the deep, killing cold of the heart of winter. When you finally rise and step out past the edge of the shelter, your breath still clouds white before you, but the wind carries a different smell. Wet earth, somewhere under the frost. The faint green promise of things beginning to grow. You stand for a moment, in the gray half-light and look out across a land that is enormous and empty and waking. This is not the frozen waste that later people will imagine when they think of this age. The ground stretches away in every direction, rolling and open, a vast plain of pale grass beaten flat by the winter. There are no trees here to speak of, only the wide sweep of the steppe running on to where it meets a sky just beginning to lighten at one edge. It is cold country, yes, it is living country. In the warm months it will feed herds beyond counting. You have seen it. You know what is coming. The band stirs behind you. Old woman is awake first, as she always is, crouched by the fire and coaxing it back to life with small dry tinder and her steady, careful breath. She is the oldest among you by far, and the most important, though she does no hunting and carries little. What she carries is inside her head, where the herds will pass, which plants will rise first and where, how to read the sky. She has lived through more winters than anyone. Every one of them has taught her something the band cannot live without. One by one the others wake and gather toward the warmth. There are perhaps 20 of you, all told. Children and those grown enough to hunt and carry, and a few who are older now, their movements stiff in the cold. You are somewhere in the middle. No longer a child, but not yet trusted with the most dangerous work. You eat a little of the last dried meat, tough and dark, chewed slowly to make it last, and you drink water from melted snow, warmed at the fire's edge. It is not much, but the long hunger of winter is almost over. The decision to move is not announced. It simply forms, way these things form, out of long-looking and quiet agreement. The hunters have walked out in recent days and come back with what they saw, written on their faces. The land to the south and east, where the great river runs, will be greening soon. The herds will go there for the new grass, as they go every year, following paths older than memory, and so the band will go there too. To stay here is to starve. To follow is to live. You begin to break the camp. There is little enough to break. The shelters come down quickly, hide coverings unlashed from their frames of bent saplings and bone, folded and rolled for carrying. The frames themselves are mostly left behind. You will cut new ones or find old ones wherever you stop next. Almost nothing here is permanent. Band has learned across uncounted generations that to live in this land is to move through it, carrying only what your back can bear. And so everyone carries. You shoulder your own share, a bundle of hides bound with cord, and you watch how the loads are divided, way they always are. Your mother, the youngest child, along with the things that keep the band alive, the bone needles and the sinew thread, small pouches of dried plants whose names and uses she alone fully knows. The hunters carry their spears and their stone, heavy points and the spare points, because points break, and a hunter without a point is no hunter at all. The old woman carries least of all in her hands, but she walks at the front, beside the most experienced of the hunters. The direction of the whole band bends around the things she remembers. This is how the knowledge moves through the world here, not in marks on stone or skin, but from mouth to ear, from the old to the young, across the long walks and the long nights. If she forgets, it is lost. If she dies before she has told it, it is lost. So she tells it, again and again, and you are meant to listen. You set out as the sun finally breaks the edge of the world. The band strings out into a long, loose line across the grass, strongest ahead and behind, the children and the burdened in the middle. The pace is steady, unhurried. There is no racing in this life. You will walk through the cool of the morning, rest in the middle of the day, and walk again before you stop to make camp. Day after day, the same. Slowly, patiently, you will close the distance between the hungry land behind you and the feeding land ahead. As you walk, you watch the ground the way you have been taught. Everything is a sign, if you know how to read it. Tracks of a hare crossing your path in the night. The droppings of a horse, and how old they are, how dry. The direction the few birds are flying. A scuff in the earth, where something large passed, and how long ago. The hunters read these without seeming to look, and slowly, year by year, you are learning to read them too. The land is speaking constantly. Survival is learning its language. By the time the sun stands high, band slows and stops to rest in the lee of a low-rise out of the wind. You sit, and your legs are glad of it, and you share a little more of the last food. No one talks much. The walking takes the breath you would use for talking. There is an ease in the band that was not there in the depths of winter. A sense of having survived something, of moving once more toward plenty. You can feel it in the loosening of shoulders, in the way the children begin, quietly, to play. Then you rise and shoulder your bundle and walk on. The afternoon is long, and the light begins to soften and lengthen across the grass. When at last you make camp, it is quick and practiced. New frames cut and bent, hides stretched over them. The fire coaxed to life from a carried coal. You eat the very last of the winter meat, and you lie down under the enormous scattered stars, tired in your body, and you let the walking carry you down into sleep, knowing that tomorrow you will rise and do it again, and that ahead of you, somewhere, the herds are gathering. You wake to a sound you have not heard in many months. Birds. Not one or two, but many calling across the gray before dawn. Whole scattered chorus of them, somewhere out in the half-dark. For the whole long winter, the mornings were silent, but for the wind. Now the sound fills the air, and you lie still and listen to it, and you understand what it means. The cold has broken, the world is turning, the hunger season is ending, and something better is coming up out of the ground to meet you. The band has stopped moving. Some days ago, you came down at last into the wide valley of the great river, and here you have made a camp that will hold for a while. River runs strong and cold beside you, swollen with the melt of the high country, brown and fast between its banks. Along its edge, the first green is showing, low and tentative, in the willows and the reeds. After the endless pale grass of the winter steppe, green is almost startling. It is the color of food. It is the color of staying alive. This camp is more settled than the quick shelters of the moving. You will be here long enough that it was worth the building. Frames are larger and more carefully set, the hides layered and well lashed against the wind. Inside there is room to sit upright, room to keep your few things dry. A fire burns at the heart of the camp, never allowed to die, tended through every night in turn. After the long walk down from the winter country, it is good to wake in the same place twice. It is good to rest. You rise and step out into air that is cold but no longer cruel. The frost is light on the grass and will burn off as the sun climbs. You wear your winter clothing still, the soft fur turned inward against your skin, and the tougher hide turned out against the wind. Soon it will be too warm for all of it, and there will be new clothing to make. And that means more work. The way everything here means more work. For now, you pull it close and walk down toward the water, where two of the hunters are already crouched. They are checking the fish trap. This is one of the great gifts of the spring river, and the band has built for it carefully. A low fence of stakes and woven branches funnels the water through a narrow gap. In this season, the fish come up the river in numbers that are hard to believe, crowding through the shallows to spawn, press into the trap, and cannot easily turn back. And the hunters take them by hand and by spear. This morning there are 3, each as long as your forearm, pulled flapping in silver from the cold water. This is easy food, and the band knows the worth of easy food. hunt the great herds is to risk your life across long days for an uncertain end. But the fish come to you, season after season, asking only that you build the trap and wait. The men kill them quickly and clean them at the water's edge, and the pale flesh is rich and fat, exactly what bodies worn thin by winter are crying out for. A few hours of building yields food for days. You understand, watching, why the band returns to this river every spring. Your own task this morning waits inland, away from the water. The old woman has been watching the ground for days, reading the slow waking of the plants. And now she judges that the time has come. You follow her out from the camp with two of the other women and a child, each of you carrying a pointed digging stick and a bag of hide. She moves slowly, her joints stiff in the cold of the early morning, but her eyes miss nothing, and where she walks, food of the spring is waiting to be found. She stops at a patch of ground that looks to you exactly like all the ground around it. She kneels and digs with her stick, working the cold soil aside, and a hand's depth down she lifts free a pale root as thick as 2 fingers. This one, she says, and turns it in her hand. Now, while the first leaves are showing, but before the plant sends up its stalk, now the root is full of the food the plant has stored. Through the winter later it will spend that food on flowering, and turn woody and bitter and be worth nothing. You begin to dig nearby, copying the angle of her stick, the lever and the lift. It is not as simple as it looks. Dig too hard, and you snap the root and lose half of it in the earth. Dig too soft and you waste the morning. But your hands are learning, season by season, and by the time the sun stands high, the small group has gathered a heavy bag of roots from this one patch. She does not take them all. Some she leaves, the way her mother taught her, so that there will be roots again, here in the spring still to come. She leads you next to the river's edge, to a plant with broad young leaves growing low in the wet ground. These, she says, pulling a handful, only the young leaves before they unfurl. They are bitter, but they are good for the blood after a winter of nothing but meat. She does not know the words a later age will use for what these leaves carry. She knows only what her own long life has shown her. The people who eat the first green of the spring grow strong again, and their gums stop bleeding, and the heaviness of winter lifts from them. You gather the tender shoots of the willow brush and strip the soft inner bark of a certain tree in long, pale ribbons, the layer that lies between the rough outer bark and the hard wood, which can be eaten as it is or dried and ground, to stretch the food stores thin. None of it is a feast on its own, but together, season upon season, this is the quiet foundation that holds the band up. Hunt is the thing that is sung about. The gathering is the thing that keeps you alive between the hunts. You return at mid with the bags full and heavy. While you were gone, the others worked. By the fire you find your mother bent over a hide, the skin of a deer in some days ago, scraped clean now of every trace of flesh and fat. She is working the brain of the animal into the skin, mashed to a paste with water, pressing it deep into the fibers with her hands. Every creature, she has told you, carries within its own head enough to soften its own hide. The oils break down the skin, turn it from something stiff and useless into something soft enough to wear. It is long work, and it is not finished when the paste goes in. Afterward, the hide must be worked and stretched, pulled and rubbed and softened by hand for hours, until the shoulders ache, till the skin becomes supple leather that will keep a body warm against the cold. This deer will become a shirt for the warmer season coming, lighter than the heavy winter hides. You sit and watch her hands move, sure and practiced, and you know that one day this work will be yours, and that your hands are not yet so sure. Nearby, one of the hunters is at his own slow craft, and you go to sit by him, because this too you must learn. He is making a point. He begins with a piece of good stone, dark and fine-grained, kind the band carries far and guards well, because not every place gives up stone worth working. He sits with a piece of hide across his thigh to guard against the sharp flakes, and he holds the stone and turns it, reading it with his fingers, seeing the shape that is waiting inside it before he has struck a single blow. He strikes with a rounded stone, and a flake springs away, curved and sharp as nothing in the natural world is sharp. He turns the stone and strikes again and again, working around its edge, each blow taking away what is not needed, until the rough shape of the point begins to show. This is the loud, quick part of the work. Comes after is slower. He sets down the hammerstone and takes up a tine of antler, and now he presses rather than strikes, pushing thin flakes free with steady force, shaping the edge fine. It takes him a long time, and you watch the whole of it, because there is no other way to learn. A later age will look at these points and call the people who made them simple. They will be wrong. Make this point, he must understand how stone breaks, how this stone differs from that one, how the angle of his force decides the shape of the flake. He must hold the finished form in his mind and work toward it through 100 small decisions, any one of which can shatter the whole. This is not a crude thing. This is a mastery built over a lifetime. Late in the day, the hunters who went out at dawn come back, and they are not empty-handed. Taken a young horse from a small band grazing the valley, and they carry the best of it between them, the rich meat of the haunch and the back, the liver and the heart, the long bones heavy with marrow. It is not the great hunt of the summer to come. It is fresh meat, the first in a long while, and a quiet gladness moves through the camp at the sight of it. Night no one will go to sleep hungry. The evening meal is something close to plenty. Fish from the river, roasted on sticks at the fire's edge. Fresh horse meat, charred outside and red within. The roots you gathered, buried in the coals until they soften and turn sweet. Bitter green leaves, wilted in the heat. You eat until you are full, truly full, and it has been a long time since that was so. Around you the band eats and murmurs, faces lit by the fire, and the river runs on in the dark. Somewhere out on the plain the herds are growing fat on the new grass and waiting. You lie down warm and full, let the spring carry you down into sleep. The heat wakes you now, where once it was the cold. The deep of the summer has come, and the sun rises early, and climbs hot into a wide pale sky. By the middle of the day, the air will lie heavy across the plain, and the light will shimmer above the grass, and there will be no shade anywhere in all that openness. You have learned, as your people have always learned, work in the cool of the morning and the cool of the evening, and to rest through the worst of the heat, still and quiet, serving what the body has. The band has moved out from the river. The spring camp is behind you. Now the fish runs long over. To stay too long in one place is to use it up and starve slowly. For some while you have followed the grass and the herds out onto the open plain, great sea of it, running unbroken to the edge of the world. This is the country of the herds. This is where, in the warm seasons, largest animals that walk the earth move slowly across the land in their numbers. It is the herds that the whole of your life now turns toward. The scouts came back yesterday with the word the band had been waiting for. They had found mammoth. Not a vast herd which can run to many tens of animals and is too much to deal with, but a small group, a handful of them, moving slowly along the line of an old watercourse where they come to drink. Scouts watched a long while from a distance and read the group the way the old woman reads plants. Females and young ones, one half grown, that walked a little apart from the rest. Huntable. This is the chance the band has hoped for all year. must understand what such an animal is to know what this means. A grown mammoth stands taller than two men and weighs more than you could hope to count, and carries tusks that curve out longer than a person is tall. Bring one down is the greatest thing the hunters of the band can do. It is also the most dangerous. Animal that size can kill you without ever meaning to, with a turn of its head, a swing of its trunk, a single step. Hunters do not approach such a thing lightly. They approach it with respect and with fear, because the ones who forget to fear it do not grow old. The whole of the previous evening was given over to preparing. Checked weapons with a care that was almost like prayer. The heavy thrusting spears, made to be driven in close, shafts sound, and their points seated firm. The lighter spears, made to be thrown, that can be cast from a little further back. They ran their hands along every shaft, feeling for the hidden crack that might fail at the worst moment. They checked the spare points and the cord bindings. On a hunt like this, one thing breaking can mean a death, and so nothing is left to chance. There is more than the checking of weapons. As the light failed, the hunters grew quiet and apart, drawing inward. Band does not speak of these animals carelessly. There is a bond between your people and the great beasts they hunt, old and deep, woven through the stories the old ones tell. The mammoth is not merely meat. It is a kind of kin, a great spirit of the plains, and to take its life is a serious thing that must be done in the right way, with the right respect. To kill without that respect, the stories say, is to invite the luck to turn against you. You will not go with them. You are not yet trusted for this. When a mammoth charges, a young one who panics can get others killed, and so you will stay back with the rest of the band and wait, and follow only after, when the dangerous work is done. In the gray before dawn, you watch the hunters ready themselves. They mark their faces and their arms with lines of charcoal and ochre, dark and red. It is not for beauty. It is a making of themselves into one thing, a single hunting body of many men, bound together for what is coming. One who leads them is a man of perhaps 30 winters, which is old for a hunter. He is scarred across the arms and missing part of one hand, taken years ago by something with teeth. He has hunted these animals many times, and he is still alive, and that fact alone is why the others follow him. He knows the things that cannot be taught with words. How close is close enough, when to press, and when to fall back. How an animal moves in the moment before it breaks. The others arrange themselves around him, and as the first light grays the sky, they go. They move out from camp and are swallowed by the vastness, small dark figures dwindling into the grass until you cannot tell them from the land. And then there is nothing to do but wait. You wait with the others, tending the fire, keeping the children quiet. The old woman is grinding plants into a paste that draws the heat from a wound, making it now before it is needed, because a wounded hunter is far more likely than a dead one. To have the medicine ready is to save the time that saves a life. The sun climbs, the heat begins to build. You strain your eyes toward the place where the hunters vanished, though there is nothing to see. The waiting is its own hard thing. Everyone in the band knows that this day may bring meat enough for weeks, or may bring a body carried home across other men's shoulders. There is no way to know which until it is over. The children feel the weight of it and stay close. No one says very much. The fire crackles. Grass hisses in the wind, and you wait, then, far off a sound. Not clear at first, then unmistakable. Voices raised, carried thin across the distance. Shouting. The hunt has begun, somewhere out beyond seeing, and you are on your feet with all the rest, straining toward it, your heart going hard. The shouting rises and falls, and then, after a time that feels very long, it fades. And in the quiet after, A single figure appears, running, coming back toward the camp. One of the younger hunters, sent to bring you. As he nears, you can see he is grinning through his exhaustion. They have one down, he says, gasping for the breath to say it. A young one. She is down. Come now, come and work. And the whole band moves at once, because everyone has a part in what comes after. Nor, you take up the things for carrying and the stone blades for cutting, and you go out fast across the grass, following the runner toward the place where the great work waits. The waiting is over. Now there is only the doing, and there is a very great deal of it, and it must be done before the heat, and the scavengers take what the hunters have won. You walk a long way out before you see them, cluster of figures, small against the openness, gathered around a shape on the ground that does not at first make sense to your eyes, because it is too large. Then the scale of it resolves and your breath catches. Even half-grown, the animal is enormous, hill of dark hair and still flesh lying on its side in the flattened grass. The hunters sit near it, spent, drinking water, one of them pressing a hide to his arm where a tusk caught him in the last of it. They are alive, all of them, and the great animal is down. Lead hunter tells it quietly while the band gathers. They came up against the wind, because these animals smell far better than they see, got close, very close, before the group knew them. Then the alarm, the great beasts wheeling to put the young ones behind them, air full of their trumpeting. The hunters drove at the half-grown one, where it stood a little apart. The thrown spears first, and then the men closing to drive the heavy spears home, staying always to the side, away from the trunk and the feet, reading the animal, falling back, pressing in again. It did not take long, though it would have felt long to the men inside it. The animal, wounded, tried to run, could not run far, and went down at last in the grass. And the hunters made the end quick, because a clean end is part of the respect. Let an animal suffer needlessly is not their way. The rest of the group fled, their cries fading out across the plain. One animal taken, one hunter cut, not badly. The old woman is already at his arm with her paste. By the measure of such a day, everything has gone as well as it could go. And now the work begins, and it is vast. There are not words enough for how much animal lies before you, and all of it must be dealt with quickly, before the summer heat turns the meat or the wolves. And the great bears come to the smell of it. Everyone works, every hand in the band, from the oldest to the children. The first task is the hide, and it is no small thing. The skin of such a beast is thick as a hand, and tough beyond belief. The hunters open it along the belly with their sharpest blades, working hard. The smell rises as the body is opened, blood and the deep musk of the animal, strong and close in the heat. It is overwhelming, and it is familiar, both at once. You have smelled it at other kills. Great cavity of the belly is opened, and the organs come out, and these are dealt with first, because they do not keep. The liver, dark and enormous. The heart, the size of a cooking vessel. These will be eaten today and tomorrow, while they are good. Nothing of the animal will be wasted. To waste it would be to dishonor the life that was taken, and also simply foolish. Band works the carcass the way it has worked 100 others, without needing to be told. Some strip the long muscles of the legs and back, great masses of dark meat, cutting it free of the bone in slabs. Some collect the fat, and the fat is precious beyond the meat almost, with the energy that carries a body through hunger. Good for the lamp and the skin, and for mixing with dried meat to make it last. Set aside the tusks and the long bones, because the ivory and the bone are tools and ornaments waiting to be made. Your own task is the fat. You cut it in handfuls from around the organs and beneath the hide, trimming away the meat, gathering the pure white of it into a bag of hide. Your hands run slick with it, and with blood. And the flies are everywhere now, drawn from across the plain, settling on the meat and your skin and the great open body, and you brush them away and brush them away, and they return, and you work faster because the heat is building, and the day is burning down, and there is so very much still to do. By the time the sun stands at its highest, the worst of the work is done, and the animal is no longer an animal but piles, meat and folded hide, and bagged fat and stacked bone, more than the band could carry away in a day or even two. This is a thing the band has long known how to answer. You will take what you can bear now, and come back across the next days for the rest, and against the scavengers and the heat, you will hide what stays behind. Hunters dig shallow pits, and line them with grass, and pack the meat down, and cover it over. The rest you cut into thin strips for drying, draping them over frames of branches, thrown up quickly at the kill site. The sun and the dry wind can begin to turn the meat to something that will keep for the long months ahead. It is hot, hard, endless work, and your back aches and your hands are raw. But no one slows, because this is the abundance the whole year has bent toward. To lose any part of it to carelessness would be a kind of sin against the animal that gave it. You work until the light begins at last to lengthen and soften. Then the band turns for home, each person bearing as much as they can carry, rich cuts and the organ meat and the heavy bags of fat, the folded hide, the long bones full of marrow. Even the children carry small bundles balanced on their backs. You walk the long way back across the cooling plain in a line, bent under the weight, tired past speaking, and glad past speaking too. You reach the camp as the sun goes down, and at once the fires are built up high, because this night is a night of plenty. Plenty is to be honored. The meat roasts over the flames, and the smell of it is past describing. The fat dripping and flaring, outside charring while the inside stays tender. You eat and eat, piece after piece, rich and hot and dripping, kind of fullness that the body remembers through all the lean times. The liver is shared out, and the heart. People are laughing, faces shining with grease in the firelight. The long fear of the morning melted away into this. A great animal has been taken. Band will eat well for weeks. This is what the whole year is for. When at last the eating slows and the fire burns lower, one of the old ones begins to speak, telling of a hunt from long ago when a spear turned on the bone and struck the man beside the thrower, who lived but walked crooked ever after. It is a story, and it is also a teaching, wrapped soft so it will be remembered. Always know where your people stand when you throw. You listen, your belly full past comfort, your hands still smelling of fat. Warmth of the fire, and the warmth of the food, and the warmth of the band carry you down at last into a deep and heavy sleep. Grass is going gold. You notice it first at the edges of the day, in the long, slanting light of the early morning and the late evening, when the whole plain turns the color of dry straw and the shadows run out long across it. The deep green of high summer is fading. Heat still comes at midday, but it has lost its edge, and the nights have turned cool again. Cool enough that you wake some mornings to find the grass silvered with dew. These are small signs, but you have been taught to read them. They all say one thing. Winter is coming. Not soon, not for many weeks yet, but soon enough that the work of preparing for it must begin now, while there is still abundance to gather and time to gather it in. This is the truth that shapes the whole of the coming season. Everything you take and store and dry in these weeks is a wall built against the hunger of the cold months. Band that gathers hard through the late summer comes through the winter whole. A band that does not. There is no softer way to say it, and your people have never pretended otherwise. The band has shifted its camp again, following the cooling land into a sheltered fold of country, where a stream runs down toward the great river. Slopes around are thick with the gifts of the late season. Berry bushes heavy with fruit. Stands of trees dropping their nuts. This is no accident. The old woman led you here, reading the turning of the year, knowing from her long memory exactly where the late food would be richest, and exactly when it would be ready. Placing of the camp is itself a kind of knowledge, and it has been bought with a whole lifetime of watching. This morning's work is berries. Slopes are dark with them, more than one kind, all of them ripening now in the last of the warmth. You go out with the women and the older children, each carrying bags of hide and containers of bark, and the old woman leads as she always leads, taking the group to the patches she knows are best, the bushes whose fruit is sweetest. She has carried the map of these slopes in her head for more years than you have been alive. And where she walks, the picking is good. First patch is heavy with small, dark berries on low bushes. And you pick steadily, stripping the clusters with your fingers, dropping them into your container. It is simple work, and there is a rhythm to it that empties the mind. Reach, strip, drop. Reach, strip, drop. Your fingers stain dark within moments, and some of the fruit crushes in your hand and runs juice down your wrist. And you eat as you pick, way everyone does, because fresh sweetness is a rare joy after a summer of meat. But you eat only a little. Most goes into the bags. Most is for the winter. You move to a second kind, larger and redder, growing on bushes thick with thorns along the stream. These are sharper to the taste, almost sour, but the old woman wants them because they dry well and keep long. Keeping is the whole point of this season. The thorns are vicious. You learn quickly to reach between them rather than push through, and even so your arms gather a web of small scratches that sting in the sweat. It is the price of the picking. The time the sun stands high, the group has gathered a great weight of fruit, and you turn back toward camp. The drying begins at once. Some of the fruit will be eaten fresh over the next days. But most must be saved, and the way to save it is to take the water out of it. Women spread the berries on flat stones in the full sun, on sheets of bark raised off the ground, on hides stretched between poles. Sun and the dry wind will work on them across several days, shrinking them, drawing out the water, leaving behind something chewy and dark and intensely sweet that will keep through the whole of the cold. Handful of it in the deep of winter is a small fire in the belly. While the berries dry, others have gone up into the wooded slopes for a different harvest. The great old trees there are dropping their nuts in this season, scattering them thick across the ground. And a good year, and this is a good year. The gathering is only a matter of bending and picking up. You join them for a time, and it is the same emptying rhythm as the berries. Bend, gather, rise, drop in the bag. Bend, gather, rise, drop. Hour upon hour, the bags filling slowly with the hard, heavy little parcels of food. The nuts are not food yet, not quite. Of them must be cracked from their shells, and the meat inside ground, between stones, into a coarse meal, and some kinds must be soaked and worked to carry off the bitterness before they can be eaten without sickness. The old woman knows which is which, knows it without thinking, the way you know the faces of your own band. The meal that comes of all this labor is rich and keeps well, and through the lean months it can be mixed with meat, or cooked to a soft mash, stretching the stores further into the cold. Greatest work of these weeks, though, is the meat. The band has hunted hard through the late summer, taking horse and bison from the herds, while they are fat from the long grazing, and most of what is taken is not eaten fresh, but turned into food that will last. Meat is cut into thin strips and laid out on racks of branches to dry in the sun. and the wind, near the fire's heat, until it is hard and dark and holds no water at all. Dried, this way it will keep for the whole of the winter and longer, asking nothing but to be kept dry. There is a better food still, and the band makes it now in quantity, because it is the truest wall against starvation they have. The dried meat is pounded between stones into a coarse powder. Fat of the animals is melted slowly at the fire until it runs clear, and then poured over the pounded meat, and the dried berries are worked in with it, and the whole is left to cool and harden into a dense, rich stuff that holds together in the hand. A small piece of it carries a body through a day of cold and labor, and it does not spoil. It will wait, faithful, for as long as the winter needs it to. This making is the quiet triumph of your people. A later age will marvel that humans without farms, without stores of grain, could carry food across the dead months of the year. But here it is, made with nothing but meat and fat, and fruit in patient hands. The bags of it fill and are hung from poles, away from the small creatures that would steal it. Each bag is a measure of survival, set by against the cold. You help in the making, your hands learning the work, and you understand without being told that what you are making is time itself. Time to live through winter is clothing to make as well. For the light hides of summer will not carry a body through the cold. You need the layered protection again, soft fur turned in against the skin, and the tough hide turned out against the wind. And your mother has been readying the skins for this all through the warm months. Now she cuts and shapes them, and sews. The sewing is slow and exacting work. Each seam is hundreds of small holes punched through tough hide with a sharpened point of bone. Through each hole the sinew thread is drawn and pulled tight. She works with a needle of bone, slender thing ground and polished smooth, across many hours, with a small eye bored through one end to carry the thread. It is one of the most valued tools the band owns. This little splinter of bone. It is what makes the difference between a heap of hides and a fitted garment that holds out the killing cold. Without the needle and the threads of sinew, and without clothing, the winter of this country cannot be survived. So much resting on so small a thing. The garments she makes are not for beauty, though there is a beauty in them. They are for keeping a body alive. Inner shirt of soft fur, and the outer of heavier hide cut a little larger, so that a layer of air is trapped between them. That trapped air is itself a kind of warmth. The outer reaches to the thigh to guard the legs. The sleeves run long past the wrist. There is a hood to draw up over the head and ears. Every line of it answers a question the cold will ask, and your people have known the answers for longer than any story remembers. The footwear matters as much as anything, perhaps more. Feet that freeze are feet that are lost, and a person who cannot walk in this life does not last long. Your mother makes the winter foot coverings in many layers, hide upon hide, packed with dry grass for warmth. The seams worked to keep the wet out, made to wrap and bind high around the calf. You have seen, in hard winters, what happens to those whose feet fail them, the blackening and the loss. So you understand why she takes such care, why nothing in this work is hurried. All across the camp, in these weeks, same readying goes on in 100 forms. The hunters set new points and shape new shafts to replace what the summer broke. Tools that chipped and dulled through the season's hard use are renewed. From the bones of the great summer kill, splinters are worked slowly into needles and awls and small sharp things. 6 hours of patient grinding for a single needle that will then serve for years. Nothing is wasted, nothing is left to the last moment. The whole band leans into the work, because the work is the difference between living and not. And then, one morning, the frost comes hard, does not burn off. and the berry bushes blacken overnight. The season of gathering is over, as suddenly as that. Whatever you have taken in is what you have. The band gathers itself and takes stock without words, each person knowing in their body what the stores hold. Dried meat and the dense rich food in its hanging bags, and dried berries and ground nuts, and the new warm clothing nearly finished. It is enough, you think. It should be enough. You pull your new shirt close against the sharpening air, and you let the early dark carry you down toward sleep and toward the cold that is coming. The land turns toward the cold now in earnest. Nights are long and sharp, and the wind out of the north carries the first true bite of the season to come. The herds are on the move, drifting away toward their winter grounds, and the band moves with them, drawn slowly, across the cooling plain toward the sheltered country, where you will wait out the worst of the winter. But before that, for the long stillness of the cold months, there is one more gathering. There is the meeting. You come down toward it across 2 days of walking. You can feel the anticipation building in the band, the nearer you draw. There is a place, a wide sheltered valley, with good water and stands of trees for firewood, where the bands have met for longer than anyone can say. Not every band, not every year, but in the turning of the seasons, the paths of your people cross here. And when they cross, there is a gathering. Your band has come to this place before. The old woman remembers meetings here from when she was young. You crest a rise in the late afternoon, and there it is below you. And your breath catches a little at the sight. Smoke. Not one fire, but several, rising in thin gray columns into the cold air. Another band has come before you and made camp, and the valley that is usually empty is alive with people who are not your people. After a whole year of seeing only the same 20 faces, the same known voices, the sight of strangers in the distance is a strange and stirring thing. You go down toward them, and they come out to meet you, and the meeting begins. For a few days, the quiet valley becomes something almost like a settlement. 3 bands gather in the end, perhaps 60 people all told, more humans in one place than you see in all the rest of the year. The fires burn long into the night. Children from the different bands, shy at first, soon run together in packs, discovering that the world holds more people than their own small family, more games, more faces. The grown ones move among each other, and the air is full of talk and trade, slow weaving of the ties that bind your scattered people together. Goods change hands, and this is one of the great purposes of the meeting. Your band has brought dried meat from the good summer, and a fine spear thrower, one of the hunters shaped through many evenings. These are offered, and other things received in return. Most prized of all is the stone. Another band carries stone from far away, dark, glassy kind that takes an edge sharper than anything your own country gives up, traded to them in turn by people further off still. Who had it from people further off than that? You hold a blade of it, and turn it in the light, and marvel, came from beyond the edge of your whole world, passed from hand to hand, across distances you cannot picture, through bands you will never see, each exchange a small act of trust binding strangers together. There are shells, too, from some great water, none of your band has ever stood beside, pierced to be worn. These things are not food, not keep anyone alive through the winter. But they carry something else, a sign that your people are not alone. The world is wide and connected and full of others, and there is news, traded as eagerly as any stone. The other bands tell of the country they have crossed, where the herds were thick this year, and where they were thin, valleys held good water, and which had gone dry. They speak of a great bear that killed 2 from a band to the south. Warning passes mouth to mouth around the fires. They tell of good winter ground to be found in a certain direction, shared freely, and because a people who help each other live longer than a people who do not. The information itself is a kind of survival. No single band can know the whole of the land, but many bands, meeting and sharing what each has seen, hold between them a map far larger than any one of them could carry, where the stone is, where the herds run, where the danger waits. It moves through these gatherings, the way the knowledge of the old woman moves through your own band, from mouth to ear, carried in living memory. This is how your scattered people think together. In the evenings, there are stories. These are the heart of the gathering. An old man from another band tells of a winter so hard in his youth that the snow buried the shelters. Story of endurance that is also a teaching about how much a band can survive. A woman tells of a hunt where everything went right, coordination perfect, no one hurt, and the young hunters listen and learn the shape of how it should be done. There is laughter too, foolish stories told for the joy of them, and the laughter binds the strangers closer than any trade. You find yourself, in these days, drawn into the company of the young people of the other bands, ones near your own age. You talk, comparing the things you each know, plants of your different countries, the ways your bands work a hide or set a trap. There is one in particular, from the second band, a little older than you, quick and knowing, and you find yourself seeking her out, and the talk between you comes easy. Nothing is said, nothing is promised. But your mother notices, and her mother notices. And something is quietly opened that may, in some season to come, grow into more. This too is a purpose of the meeting, perhaps the deepest one, though no one speaks of it plainly. Band that takes all its mates from within itself, sickens across the generations, grows weak, fades. Your people learned this long ago, in the blood if not in words, and the meetings are the answer. Here the young of different bands find each other. Here, in some years, a young person leaves their band to join another, and the lines of your people are woven together anew, kept strong, kept whole. Gathering is not only trade and talk. It is the renewing of the people themselves. After 3 days, the bands begin to loosen and part. It happens slowly, without ceremony. Supplies are settled, one band short of good points receiving extras from the others. As next year, it may be your band that is short. A young man from the second band has decided to come away with yours, drawn by one of the women, and he gathers his few things and takes his place among you as if he had always been there. An older couple leaves your band to join another, be near grandchildren born into that group. The people rearrange themselves and are stronger for it. And then it is over. Bands go their separate ways, each toward its own winter ground, dwindling into the vastness until the valley is empty again and quiet, as though no one had ever been there at all. You walk away from it carrying more than you came with. New stone, a shell to wear, news of the land ahead, the memory of new faces, and one face in particular, and the deep, wordless reassurance that your small band is one thread in something far larger. A people spread thin across great cold world, but bound together, still, by these meetings in the turning of the year. Your band travels on, alone now, toward the sheltered country where the winter will be spent. Land empties and stills around you, and the cold deepens with each day's walking. The great openness that felt so full of others a few days ago feels once more like the wide and lonely place it is. It is a different loneliness now, a lighter one, for you carry the meeting inside you. You walk into the gathering dark of the year. At night, you lie down under the hard, bright stars, and you let the memory of the fires and the voices carry you gently down into sleep. Winter ground is a place the band has come to before. And there is comfort in that, in arriving somewhere known, when the cold is closing in. It sits on a low terrace above the frozen course of a stream, where the land folds and a wall of higher ground breaks the worst of the wind out of north. The herds pass near here in their wanderings, close enough to hunt in the lean months, and there is shelter and water under the ice, and the memory of past winters survived. Here the band will wait out the dark heart of the year. Shelters built here are unlike the quick camps of the moving seasons. They are made to last the whole of the winter, and they are made, in part, great animals themselves. The long curved bones and the heavy skulls and tusks of mammoth, gathered over seasons from the kills, and from the places where such animals have died, are set into the frozen ground and stacked and bound into low rounded walls, strong against the wind in a way no frame of saplings could ever be. Over them go the hides, layered thick, and the whole is packed and sealed against the cold. It is a strange and powerful thing, live the winter inside the bones of the animals that feed you. On the open steppe there is little wood, and what there is must be hoarded, and so even the bone of the mammoth becomes fuel, burning slow and greasy in the hearths when the wood runs short. The great beast gives everything, in the end. Its meat for the belly, its fat for the lamp, its hide for the wall and the clothing, its bone for the tool and the very house, and the very fire. Your people live wrapped inside its gift, and they have not forgotten to be grateful. First deep snow comes, and you wake to a silence you had almost forgotten, the particular hush that only deep snow makes, swallowing every sound. You push aside the hide at the entrance, and the world outside is white in every direction, smooth and unbroken, but for the track of a hair that crossed in the night. The sky hangs low and gray, heavy with more snow to come. When you step out, the cold takes the breath from you, and your face stings within moments, and you understand that the season of endurance has truly begun. Everything changes now. The constant moving of the warm months is over. Band is still, held in place by the snow and the killing cold. The simple truth that to travel far in this is to die. World shrinks to the few miles around the camp, far enough to find game, when game can be found, near enough to come home before the dark or the cold can take you. Beyond that small circle, the white country waits, and it is not your country now. In winter, it belongs to the cold, and to the things that hunt in the cold, and you do not wander into it without need. But inside the shelters, there is warmth, and that warmth is a kind of miracle made by your own hands. The bodies of the band press close, and the hearth carefully tended raise the air within to something a body can live in. Even as the cold outside deepens, past anything flesh could survive. Difference between the white death outside and the close, warm dark within is everything, and it is made of nothing but hide and bone and trapped breath and fire. Your people built this. Out of the dead winter, they made a place to live. Fire is the center of all of it, and the tending of the fire becomes the great work of the winter days. It must never be let die. To start it anew in the deep cold, with hands gone numb and tinder gone damp, is a hard and dangerous thing. So it is fed, always in turn, every hour of the long nights. The wood and the bone are burned with care, never too much, never too little. Greasy mammoth bone eked out to spare the precious wood. A fire, well kept, warms the whole shelter and lasts. Fire poorly kept gutters and smokes, and devours the stores too fast. You are learning the fire this winter, and the old woman is teaching you. It is knowledge that will keep you alive every day of the life still ahead of you. See how the flame stands clear and yellow, she says. That is good air, clean burning. When it sinks to a smoky orange, the fire is choking, and you must open it. Give it air, feed it small before you feed it large. She shows you how to bank the coals at night under a blanket of ash. They smolder slow till morning, and the fire need not be born again from nothing in the cold dark. Food is measured now with a care that is almost like prayer. The band knows, without counting in numbers, roughly how much is stored and roughly how much winter remains, and the one must be made to stretch across the other. Each day a portion is given out, dried meat, and the dense, rich food made in the autumn, and the ground meal of the nuts, enough to hold off starvation, but never quite enough to fill. You are hungry through most of the winter, not dying, not desperate, but never full. Simply how the winter is. This is how it has always been. The dense autumn food is what carries you more than anything. A small piece of it, pounded meat and fat and berry, eaten slowly in the cold morning, holds a body through hours of labor and chill. You learn to eat it slowly, to make it last, because the next portion will not come until the day is old. Water comes from snow melted at the fire, never eaten as snow. To fill your mouth with snow is to give away the heat you cannot spare. The warm water spreads through your chest and belly. It is its own small comfort in the long cold. The hunting does not stop, but it grows hard and dangerous. Animals shelter from the cold as you do, and they are scarce and hard to find. The snow shows their tracks plainly, which shows yours as plainly too, to the things that might hunt you. And the cold itself is the great enemy. A hunter can stay out only a few hours before he must turn back to the fire. Freezing can take a hand or a foot before its owner even feels the danger, the flesh going hard and white, and then later dying. You have seen this, everyone has. The men go out when the weather allows every few days, and they come back with something perhaps once in many tries, a deer, a hare, some lean winter creature that has not gone deep enough into hiding. It is never enough to live on. It is enough to stretch the stores a little further, to put a few fresh mouthfuls in the pot. There is no feasting in winter. A winter kill is butchered, and most of it added straight to the stores, and only a little eaten fresh. The gladness of it is a quiet gladness, nothing like the wild plenty of the summer hunt. Restraint in winter is survival. Inside the shelters, through the long confinement, the work goes on. For there is always work. Work is also a way to hold off the dark of the mind that the long winter can bring. Your mother mends the clothing, which wears fast under constant use and must be kept whole, for a failed garment in this cold can kill. She replaces worn stitching, patches the holes, strengthens the places that take the strain, all of it by firelight, slow and hard on the eyes, and all of it needful. Men make and mend their tools, and the long dark hours are good for this patient work that asks for care rather than strength. Man sits by the fire and shapes a new point across hours, flaking it fine, testing its balance, and another carves a new shaft, and another grinds a splinter of bone into a needle for the women. The winter is when the band remakes itself, reels the tools that the hard work of the warm seasons will need, so that when the spring comes at last, the band comes into it, sharp and ready, worn and bare. The old woman uses the winter to teach, and this may be the most important work of all. She gathers the young around her in the fire light and pours out what she carries, knowledge of a lifetime, and of the lifetimes before hers that were poured into her. The plants of the spring, and where they rise, the ways of the animals, the signs in the sky that warn of the weather's turning. She tells it again and again, till the young can say it back to her, because she is the only place this knowledge lives. And if she dies before it is passed on, it dies with her. Band is poorer and less safe forever. She teaches you the winter plants, the few that can be found even now. Under the snow, she says, are roots still living. On the slopes that face the sun, where the snow lies thin, the small sharp root that flavors the meat, the frozen stream, dug from under the ice and the hard ground, the sweet root that gives strength. She tells you what they look like in their dormant sleep, where they grow, how to find them when all the world is white and dead. This knowledge, too, may one day be the thing that saves you in some winter when the stores run short. And the stories come thick in the winter. The nights are long past believing, the dark falling in the mid-afternoon and holding till late in the morning. And the hours must be filled. Band draws close to the fire each evening, and the tales are told, and they are many things at once. They are entertainment, past the endless dark. They are history, the deeds of those who came before. They are teaching, lessons wrapped soft in story so they lodge in the memory. And they are something deeper, the way your people make sense of the world and their place inside it. By the deep of the winter the stores have shrunk. Bags that hung so full are slack now, and worry moves quietly through the band. The hunting has been poor, the game gone to ground, the dried meat goes faster than was hoped. No one is starving yet, but the portions are cut a little smaller, and the hunger sits a little deeper, dull ache that never quite leaves, and the talk by the fire grows shorter, and tempers fray, and everyone waits, counts the days in their bodies, and watches the slow strengthening of the light. The hardest time is the very end, when the stores are lowest, and the spring still seems impossibly far. The band is thin now, all of you, the flesh worn off through the long cold. The old woman is weaker than the rest, for she has been giving some of her own small portion to the children, quietly, saying nothing. The old sometimes do, fading a little so that the young may not. No one speaks of it. Everyone understands it. It is one of the oldest and hardest of the things your people know, that sometimes the old choose to fade so that the band goes on. The band endures. You come through the worst of it, through the hungry dark, into the slow lengthening of the days. Cold loosens its grip by small degrees. The ice on the stream groans and begins to shift. And one morning, there is a sound you have not heard in many months. A bird, calling somewhere in the gray. And the old woman, thinner but living still, lifts her head and says that it is time soon to think of the spring plants. You survived. The band survived. Long test is passed for another turning of the year. You lie down that night in the close warm dark, the worst behind you, and you let the coming spring carry you gently down into sleep. Let us pause here, in the turning of the year, and look at what you have been living, because it would be easy, from the comfort of a later age, to call this life simple. To imagine that these people, there with their stone and their hide and their fire, were lesser, somehow, dimmer, further down some ladder that climbs toward the present. That is a mistake, and a deep one. The life you have been walking through is not simple at all. It is built upon knowledge so vast and so precise that few who come after could survive a single season inside it. Begin with the mind itself. Brain you are using to follow these words is the same brain, in every way that matters, as the brain of the hunter shaping his point by the fire. Similar. The same capacity to learn, to plan, to imagine, to solve. Nothing has been added to it across all the long years between. Changed was never the mind. What changed was only what the mind was given to learn. And the people of this age learned things that would defeat almost anyone alive in the time of cities. Take the making of a point you have watched so many times. A later age will look at these worked stones and call them crude. They will be wrong. To strike a flake from stone is to know how stone breaks, which is not obvious and not the same for every stone. Maker must read the piece in his hand, see the shape hidden inside it, and reach that shape through a long sequence of blows, each one removing exactly what is not needed, each one able to ruin everything if it lands wrong. This is not the work of a dull mind. This is mastery. Those who have tried it in a softer age, with all their learning, find it humbling. They labor for weeks and produce clumsy, broken things, while the hunter of this band turns out point after fine point, balanced and sharp and deadly, because he has been learning since he was a child, and his hands and his eye carry a knowledge that words alone could never hold. It takes a lifetime to master, and every grown hunter in your band has mastered it. What looks like a simple stone is the visible edge of a deep and hard-won skill. The knowledge goes beyond the making to the stone itself. Every rock will serve. The maker knows which kinds break clean and hold an edge, which are too coarse, which shatter wrong. He knows that the dark, glassy stone from far away is sharpest but brittle, that the finer flint is more forgiving, that some stone works better if it is first warmed in the fire. He carries in his head a map of where such stone can be found across great distances, country, and what may be traded for it. This is the deep reading of the earth, learned and held without a single written mark. Consider the fire you have learned to tend and are learning to make. It seems simple only because you have seen it done 1,000 times. To draw fire from nothing but wood in motion is to wring heat out of friction, until the wood itself begins to burn, and it asks for skill and strength and knowledge all at once. The drill must be of one wood, the board of another. Tinder must be dry and made ready just so. The motion must be steady and swift and long. Fail in any part, and no fire comes. And in the cold, no fire can mean no life. Your people know which woods give fire and which will not. They know the soft wood that takes the spinning drill, fibrous bark that catches the first coal, the dry-standing dead wood that burns clean. They know that wood gathered in one season burns better than wood gathered in another. None of this was given to them. It was found across uncounted generations by trying and failing and remembering, and the remembering was passed down mouth to ear till it lived in every member, the band. To make fire is to hold all of that learning in your hands. The plant knowledge of the old woman is deeper still and more dangerous to lack. She knows hundreds of growing things by sight, often by some small detail, the shape of a leaf, the feel of a stem. She knows which part of each may be eaten, and in which season, for a root may be food in the spring and worthless by the summer. She knows which must be cooked, which must be worked to carry off their poison, which may be eaten as they are. This is not a small store of knowledge. It is a vast and ordered library, held entirely within one aging mind, and it is a library where a single error can kill. Many a good plant has a twin that is poison, and the difference between them may be slight, leaf a little more pointed, a smell a little sharper when the stem is broken. To confuse the two is to die. The old woman learned this across her whole long life, watching her own mother and grandmother, making her own careful trials. Now, she pours it into you and the other young ones, with all the patience she has, because she knows that one day your life will hang on whether you remember. Think of the reading of the animals, which is its own great skill. Track is not merely to follow a footprint. It is to look at a mark in the earth and know what made it, how large it was, how long ago it passed, whether it moved at ease or in fear, whether it was sound or hurt, whether it walked alone or in a herd. It is to read the chewed plant, droppings, the scuff and the scrape, and from all of it to build a picture of animals you cannot see. The hunters do this without seeming to look. It took them all their lives to learn. They know the ways of every creature they hunt or fear. When the deer feed and when they rest, the herds gather and scatter with the seasons. When the great beasts are most dangerous, and when the bear comes hungry from its winter sleep, and how the wolves hunt together with a cunning of their own. This is not idle knowledge. It is what lets your people take the animals they need and not become, themselves, the taken. To live among such creatures is to be locked in a long contest of wits, and to win it, you must understand your rivals deeply. The old woman reads the sky as well and tells the weather before it comes. She watches the shape and the color of the clouds, way the birds fly, low or high, the behavior of the small creatures, the ache that wakes in her old joints before a change. She knows the patterns of the seasons, from which way the hard storms come and when. This reading buys the band time to seek shelter, to prepare, keep from being caught in the open by the killing weather. It is a knowledge gathered from a lifetime of looking, and it has saved the band more than once. You find your way across a trackless world with no marks and no makings to guide you, and this too is a skill. You read the sun and the stars, the lie of the land, the run of the streams toward the rivers. You hold in your mind a map of vast country, the water and the good hunting and the danger and the meeting places. All of it remembered, none of it drawn. This carrying of the land within the mind is built from childhood, through endless walking and endless attention, till you could no more lose your way than forget your own people's faces. Even the working of the hide is a kind of deep understanding. No one in your band would name it so. To know that the brain of the animal will soften its own skin, the smoke of the fire will preserve the leather and turn the rain, that the steps must come in their right order, or the hide is ruined, is to know the hidden workings of the world through long trial. The cordage, twisted from plant and sinew, is the same, quiet mastery of which fiber holds and which fails, of the twist that makes a cord stronger than the threads it is made from. All of this, every part of it, lives in the minds of your people and nowhere else. There are no marks to hold it, no store outside the living memory. It is kept alive only by being taught, shown, practiced, passed from the old to the young, across the long nights and the long walks. This is the first and oldest knowledge of all, the knowledge of how to keep that knowledge living. And it works, because the stakes could not be higher, because to forget is to die, and so the people remember and teach and remember again. So when a later age looks back and pities these people for what they lacked, it has the truth exactly backward. They lacked much that comes later, yes, but they held in their own hands and heads a competence so complete that almost no one who comes after could match it. They could make everything they needed from the living world around them. They could read that world like a face they had known all their lives. Were not the dim beginning of the human story. They were its long, sophisticated, hard-won foundation, and everything that came after was built upon what they knew. Rest now, and remember that. The year has come round again. You followed it from the breaking of one winter to the edge of the next, through the spring and the river, through the great hunt of the summer and the gathering of the autumn, through the long cold and out the other side. This is the shape of the life, not a line running somewhere, but a circle, turning and turning. The same seasons coming again and again, the same work, the same dangers, same quiet joys. And in that turning, across uncounted years, your people lived, not for a generation, for longer than anyone can hold in the mind. That is the thing most easily lost, looking back from a later age. How long this lasted, world of cities and farms and written words, the whole world that will one day feel like all of human history, only the thinnest sliver at the very end. This, the life of the band and the fire and the herds, was the human story for almost the whole of its length. Tens of thousands of years, hundreds of generations, and grandmothers and great-grandmothers beyond counting, each one teaching the next how to live. This was not a brief beginning. This was nearly the whole of it, and it was not a poorer life for being older. It was hard, yes, in ways a later age would find difficult to bear. Cold was real, and the hunger and the loss. Many children did not grow. Many hunters did not come home. The old faded so the young could go on. None of that was gentle. But it was not only hardship. There was the fullness of the summer feast, and the warmth of the close shelter, the laughter at the gathering, and the deep belonging of the band, the certain knowledge that you were held, that you were not alone. Your people would carry you as you would carry them. You were never alone. That, perhaps, is the deepest truth of this life. There was no surviving it by yourself, and so no one tried. Every skill was shared, every kill divided, every burden carried between many hands. Band was not a group of individuals who happened to travel together. It was a single living thing, and you were part of it, and it was part of you. And that belonging was as necessary as the fire and the food. To be of the band was to be human, in the oldest and truest sense the word has ever held. Think of the woman who tended the fire through the long nights, year upon year, so that it never died, so that the band never woke to cold and dark. Think of the hunter who could shape a perfect point across patient hours, holding the finished form in his mind through 100 careful blows. Think the old woman who carried a lifetime of knowing inside her, plants and the weather and the ways of the animals, and gave it all away to the young before she went. These were not simple people, Bod. These were the keepers of everything the human story had learned so far. And what they learned did not vanish when they did. It passed on, mouth to ear, hand to hand, across the long generations, and it became the ground that everything else was built upon. The making of fire, working of stone, the reading of the living world, the care of one another through the hard seasons, all of it was handed forward, gift upon gift, until it reached, by ways too long to trace, the world you wake in now. You are standing on what they knew. You always have been. The mind that did all of this is your mind. Remember that of everything. The same capacity to learn and plan and imagine and endure. Set down in their world, you could have learned their skills, slowly, as they did. Brought into yours, they could have learned all that you know. There is no great gulf between you and them, no difference of kind. There is only the long handing down of knowledge that connects you to them across, cheers, all the years, an unbroken chain of teaching and learning, reaching all the way back to the fire in the dark. So when you imagine these people now, not imagine them as lesser. Imagine them as they were, skilled past the measure of a later age, bound to one another in a way that the lonely times to come would lose and long for. Living inside a world so alive, so full of great animals and wide skies and brilliant stars, that you can scarcely picture it from where you lie. They were not waiting for a better age to arrive. They were living the age that was theirs, fully, as we all only ever can. Fire we sat down beside, at the beginning, is the same fire, in a sense, that has burned through this whole long story. Fire the band never let die. The fire that made the dark survivable, cooked the food, and softened the hide, and held the cold at bay, and gathered the people close to tell their tales. It has been burning, in one hearth or another, tended by one set of hands after another, for almost the whole of the human story. And in some deep way it is burning still, handed all the way down to you. Now let the band sleep. Let them lie down in the close warm dark of the shelter, wrapped in the hides they made, fire banked low and faithful at the center. Someone keeping the watch as someone always keeps the watch. They are tired from the work of living, and they are full, or full enough, and they are together, and they are safe as anyone in that world could be. Outside, great cold plain stretches away under the stars, and the herds move slowly across it in the dark, and the year turns on toward another spring. Let yourself sink down with them now, the same way. There is nothing left to do tonight. The fire is tended, the watch is kept, the long year is behind you, and the deep rest is here. Let the cold plain and the bright stars and the breathing of the band carry you the rest of way down, the way they carried that young one between the sleeping bodies, all those countless years ago, who was so very much like you. Sleep now. Sleep as your people have always slept, gathered close against the dark, held and carried, and never truly alone. They walked the longest road of all, the road that made us what we are, and they walked it one ordinary day at a time, following the herds, tending the fire, teaching the young, enduring the winter, and finding, in the middle of all that hardness, enough warmth and enough belonging to call it a life. A good life, the oldest life there was. Carry them with you into sleep, and rest well.